And we are back again here from Eerie Horror Fest, and we are keeping the Children of Corn train running.
More corn?
More corn. And this time around, we're joined by the director of the film, Fritz Kiersch.
Kiersch.
I'm sorry. Kiersch.
My heirs will be really angry.
I'm sorry. Here's the thing. I have a name that gets screwed up all the time, so when I do it, I feel bad.
Yeah.
But no, we're joined by Fritz Kiersch and John Franklin.
Frankin.
Franklin.
No, I'm just
Franklin from the film. You might remember him as Isaac.
He's the Dijon of film. Dijon of
Actually,
mustards.
I am Fritz, and he's John.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we
People
go.
get it mixed up often.
There we go.
It's
Well,
good
John,
and
I
sweet.
was when we were just talking with Courtney, I said, how did it feel to be arguably the star of the film in a production like this? And I said arguably because, well, you could say Isaac's the star of the film. So do you feel who's the star? Is it
Who's the star of the
is it
movie?
Isaac, or is it?
I never have ever thought of that. Actually, really, I just always thought we're co-stars.
Yeah.
In fact, you watch the movie; it's mainly Peter Horton and Linda Hamilton, and the most screen time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I have to insert and just say that when people talk about stardom and who is first on the casting call, that kind of delineates number one, number two, you're the star or not. On this particular film, everybody had the same side dressing room, so everybody was equal. There was no star. Everybody was the same thing.
And so just kind of going from the beginning, as a director, like how did you come to be a part of this project? Was the script brought to you? Did you how did this all
Well, it's a kind of interesting story, and I don't want to be boring and lengthy, but in shorthand, I was making television commercials at the time. I had a business partner, and we were very productive and happy making this is good tasting tuna, and this is my Chevy, and all those kind of things that at a late 20-year-old kid, it was a lot of fun. And we employed a lot of people to make these short one-day events happen, commercials. And one of the people that was with us regularly, production manager, took a job at a new company, the New World, recently purchased at that time by two lawyers who bought Roger Corman's name, company name, not a library. So they needed content, and they went out and they scoured, and they found this particular story that Hal Roach had purchased for resuscitating the Little Rascals. He bought it from King. And that particular version wasn't really good and genre specific, and it was different, and it didn't work, and no one would buy it. But the thought was, let's turn it into a genre specific story, capitalizing on the fears of kids. So this particular man that worked with us was an executive at the studio and said, you two guys can make this movie. You can do it quick. Come on. We got to do it. We got to make movies.
quick is the
And we
operative
quick.
word, and cheap.
Gene, I was going to say quick, Gene.
Yeah, we're having a great time making TV commercials. What the hell? Bite and smile. We want some tuna? We have a whole case of tuna they gave us.
Did I show you the tuna commercial? It's all
Hot
there.
Pockets? I got Hot Pockets, baby. And so off we went after agreeing, after about an hour's conversation with the leadership of the company, we'll do the film for this amount of money, very low budget. We, over the weekend, packed up and went to Iowa and Texas and Illinois and looked for cornfields. And then called our friends, started casting, met John, met Courtney, met others, Peter, Linda, and so forth. Bingo, we're making the film.
And then we shot the Hot Pockets commercial of Isaac eating it, and then
I was going to say.
it got cut.
I was going to say,
no.
did
I have your
Isaac
ham and
force
cheese,
everyone
Outlander.
to eat Hot
Product
Pockets?
placement for that period of time.
No Monopoly,
there were
no
Hot
records.
Pockets.
Everybody has to eat Hot Pockets.
Hot Pockets. Well, I made the very first Hot Pockets commercial.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was me. That was it. So I can make fun of Hot Pockets.
Hot
But I've got your ham and cheese Outlander. I think it's a T-shirt.
Now, John, correct me if I'm wrong. But you were 24?
23.
23.
Yeah,
when
come
shooting
on
this film. Yeah. Didn't mean to add an extra age on you.
No, I know,
Or you
and
on
I would lie for years. I lied on the set with them just because they wanted 18 to play younger, so that child labor laws, and they could work me forever. And so that was it. And I remember I had just graduated a couple years earlier from University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. So I had BFA on my resume. And I remember we were at the casting session, and all of a sudden the other casting, I think it was Don Borcher, said, how could you have a BFA if you're 18? And it was like a miracle. I'm not good at math, but I'm going, oh yes, I was born in 66. I went to the University of Illinois, and as a child genius, I was 12 years old. They were like, whoa. I'm like,
That
where
is
did this?
really getting into
So
character.
I
right there.
covered
Like,
my butt
cover it
so much. I
all.
was like, So
Yeah,
it's
but
like,
that also points to the intelligence of that particular producer because he couldn't do the math fast enough.
so I probably
Well, that
messed up
sounds good.
somewhere. Yeah.
You know.
Well, there's that old saying in Hollywood: don't work with animals and don't work with children. Obviously, this movie you did nothing but work. Well,
We
except
worked-
with Linda Hamilton and stuff like that. But you were. What is it like working with not just like children? Some of them were of age, but then varying ages of children. As a director, how do you approach that?
Well, there's a lot of John brought it up, child labor laws that control the time element, the work time for children at different ages. So depending on an age, they can work for so many minutes, hours, or the day. So you have to kind of calculate, not kind of, but you absolutely calculate the time they can work, when they have to have recreation, when they have to go to school, and so forth. And then you hire body doubles, and you organize the architecture of the blocking the shot so that we see the back of their double and shoot the front of John, and we
Right.
switch them out so one can go to school and one can be on camera, and you work that through. And after making this film, I got a lot of attention for working with children under 18, so I got a lot of offers to make more children's films, and it becomes a skill. You polish it, but it's hard. It really is. And it's frustrating because John could stay the whole day,
Right.
but the scene partner could 20 minutes, maybe 3 hours.
So it's like, how do you get your coverage?
And
then
John's
when
cool,
that's the case.
and then the other, they fall apart, and John doesn't like it,
Yeah.
and we got to go back. And then I just say, oh, fine, on to the next one. Get another kid in here, and let's go.
Sarah and Joby were the main, that they
Right.
had the leads, big
Mhm.
parts too. So
So, John, how did you approach the character of Isaac?
I had just done recently, 6 weeks earlier, moved from Chicago,
Yeah.
and I did The Innocents, the play. There's
Yeah,
a movie version of
yeah,
it. So I
yeah.
played the possessed kid in that, and Theater on the Lake in Chicago, where I, spoiler alert, I die at the end. The character dies. So I kind of was channeling that, and then I just got I was always a Stephen King fan. I always loved the reading the books, and then I watched a couple late night preachers just to see that, and I said, well, I like some of that not.
Especially in
And-
like 1984, that's a
Yeah.
different type of late night preacher than
Yeah,
what you
exactly.
brought to it.
Right. So I just took parts of that and just went with it, But the hair, that's a funny story, the way I looked like Spock, is
Yeah.
because my first SAG job was a Star Trek Atari commercial, being a Vulcan.
Really?
So Werner Kempler, who did Leonard Nimoy's makeup for the series and the movies, did my makeup, cast the ears, and I was a full Vulcan. You can see it. It's probably on YouTube somewhere.
Right.
So I was like, they were cutting my hair, and I'm going to do a movie in Iowa next week with the Vulcan haircut. And then I got to the set, and they're like, yeah, this is cool. This is weird. Yeah, right, yeah, let's go with it. So they just left it, so I have the Vulcan haircut.
Well, it makes it part of the whole mystique of the character. Like in the first shot where we see you just in the window of the diner, and you're just
Such a
dead
great shot.
staring
Yeah.
at the camera. Like you already know everything about that character. This character has everyone under control, and is just manipulating them to do the most graphic, horrible thing possible to the parents.
Oh,
And it's just, whether it's the haircut or I think it's just the dead stare you give. It's just so good.
they invited Peter Horton, Linda Hamilton, and myself to like a small screening.
Mhm.
One of us was going to get chosen to do a national junket tour promotion. And so we got to watch it early before it was in the theaters. And that freaked me out the first time. I'm not getting cold chills now, even when I saw, just like that in the window.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. Because you have no idea what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And they didn't want us to watch the dailies because they were sending
Right.
it back and forth. They're like, no, it's not cool. I think we watched it once. And then you guys were like going, no, you don't, no actors allowed.
Yeah, it was so unsettling because it was like Spaghetti-O Charles Manson. You know what I mean? Like he's just like a little Charlie Manson, just complete control. You know? Yeah.
Explain that to me later.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But no, I think in when you put film together, it's so often people write long speeches and so forth in scripts. This is what the character will be, and I'll voice these kind of feelings and emotions, and you'll understand me, and all that kind of stuff. And then sometimes the wardrobe does the acting, and all you need to do is take advantage of a viewer's thoughts and histories, and say the viewer will get this. Add the music, add the camera, man. the wardrobe does everything, and not
Yeah.
to belittle or make fun of what he brings to that shot, but sometimes that's all you need.
Is that a short joke?
He's everything.
Belittle, short joke?
No,
Ba-dum-bum.
no,
No,
I
I'm-
never thought of it that way. Son of a bitch.
What was it like?
You're sparing.
Oh no, you're completely fine with
Okay,
that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah, you can drop as many. We're
Got it,
explicit
I was
podcast,
kidding,
so
I
you're
was
good.
kidding,
You're
you
good.
know.
And so, what was it like shooting predominantly outside? And what time of year were you guys shooting this? What was it? Was it
September,
overly hot?
October
Was it
is-
overly cold? Was it a good time of year to be
It's colder
shooting?
than hell.
Freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the irony of it all is that we ran off to look at different places around the country, identified Iowa, that particular section of Iowa, and the small towns that we shot in, and said, we'll come back. That was July, I think. We'll do our planning back in Los Angeles at the company, and then we'll all motor up here, fly up here, and we'll organize the company, and we'll start shooting in September, whatever it was. And so when we scouted, beautiful fields of corn, up to the waist. Everything was wonderful. We were going to make, that's exactly what I imagined. An ocean of corn, a little island of a town, isolated. Oh, idyllic. This is cool. Get back in September. Everything's dead or been chopped down. We didn't read the Farmer's Almanac. We're just dumb.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize that things go fallow or they're taken
Yeah.
down or just nature or it's time to harvest. And so we ran around.
And spray painted
Spray
corn
painting
green.
and did all kinds of reparation or, well, tomorrow we'll shoot here because that's gone, that side of the street.
Yeah.
And then night would fall and everybody would bring out 3 layers of clothes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was really
So when you
cool.
lit the cornfield on fire and had that explosion, you're all like, whoa,
That was,
toasty.
yeah. And me being from Chicago, idiot, I come back to Iowa and I didn't bring a coat, a hat, gloves. So my first day off, they took us to a mall that was actually built where there used to be a slaughterhouse, and you could see the grease on the walls. And I bought a coat and hat, and I still have the hat too. I still have the hat. It's like deteriorated, but so.
What was it like kind of trying to adapt a Stephen King story? Because when you look at, say, The Shining and all the drama that came from that, of Kubrick is adapting that and then his reaction to it afterwards, was there any pressure on you to try to give that story justice, or just knowing that you're working with King's work?
There's a lot of respect for the author in all that we get to do at any given time, in any form of presentation of performance. We always respect the words of the author and the thoughts and the concepts that drive those words. But in this particular case, the original script was not, Stephen King's version of his novella in script form was not received very well because it had a different direction. And the studio wanted to capitalize on the fears of children, basically, and they realized the market, ticket buyers, was this age group, particularly young boys and girls. So how do we change that to get into those areas where kids would be attracted and buy tickets? So the producer that we were joking about literally had a pair of scissors that cut cloth. They're like 12 inches long. And we took Stephen King's story, along with the writer, George Goldsmith, who's credited with the screenplay. And on Saturday, about 4 of us sat, and the producer would read a page, and then we would choose parts of it we thought applicable, and he would just take those shears and cut sections of the page out and paste them onto another piece of paper, and that became a semi-continuity. And then George added more to it, and we turned the film into what it is more about or what it became. So it was a pair of scissors that really rewrote the script, and then the genius of George really turning something that was, staccato in nature into something smooth and symphonic.
It's also scary, though, for adults, anyone over 18, because they're going, oh, my God, my kids are going to come and kill me after they see this movie. A lot of people have come to conventions and said, now I was a kid then, and now I'm an adult, and I'm worried about my kids. It's many years later. So.
But, the story itself, the goal was to make a film about dogma, about challenging authority. And I realized that what we want to do is not to bring a voice forward to children and younger people that enables them to believe people and just follow them. Right. Don't just take that word. Go against the grain and realize what's going on and think about it and then make your choices. So I remember the big argument we had, and we ended up calling it, at that particular session with the scissors, the Captain Kirk speech.
Oh,
Peter
okay.
Horton's
Yeah.
ending speech.
Yeah, I
and
know,
you believe
yeah.
that, and that had to justify the point of view and the theme of the story, and so it was very, carefully words were chosen back and forth. And no, it's a wake of time. Fuck that. Just slaughter the kids. No, we can't slaughter the kids. We've got money invested in wardrobe. We gotta.
We might do a sequel.
It was his birthday. He was feeling a little high and mighty, very proud of himself that day. So, John, were you presented from the beginning that this had a supernatural bend, or was it presented to you more of like, okay, Isac's character is that he's just this genius, malevolent force of evil, or did you know from the beginning that there was some underlying like supernatural force that was guiding his crusade?
I mean, I was so scared and terrified because it was my first feature film, and I just wanted to do my lines perfectly, and they did call me One Take Franklin, so I was like, that was great. Did my job and got through the shooting and did hit all my marks in the time. So as far as, I don't even remember the character description. I'd have to go back because I've got this original screenplay, but I just kind of did my own thing, and I just like knew I wanted to be looking 12, 13 to have this gravitas of the character. So I didn't really think about the supernatural aspect. Looking back later when I co-wrote 666, definitely we thought, okay, Isaac was kind of possessed, and that he was channeling He Who Walks Behind the Rose, and a little bit more intellectual level. But when you're terrified and you're just trying to do your lines, you're just like, okay, not going that far.
And
How we physicalized the supernatural really was almost spontaneously thought of. We were out there, no idea. When I went to speak to the leadership of the company about the movie, and the question was, what's the monster look like? I don't know. I don't fucking know. And talking fast and picking things up, I immediately went to, oh, well, Romero is my hero and blah, blah. I made this shit up. And then it's everything we're afraid of as a child. It's that noise in the dark, which I glommed onto and held onto, and that became kind of the mechanism that drove the inventions that we came up with when we actually had to physicalize everything later. But
I
in
think
the script,
Tremors
there was
ripped off you
nothing
guys.
written
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what this monster, this supernatural thing was.
But to me, that the idea of you just see, the winds whipping around and towards the end, and then the plow thing going through the dirt, and that was really cool. But then they added later on the Grinch kind of thing coming up, and I go, oh, that was kind of disappointing for me. I was like, because I didn't want to see anything. I just thought that was far more terrifying just to see the dirt go.
It's the light you don't turn
But
on.
it was
Yeah.
the sound design on that
Oh,
monster. That
yeah.
was
And the
what got
music
it for me,
by
and the
Jonathan
music on
Elias
top
was
of it.
Greg
amazing.
Barbanel did all the sound at a place called Mag City, and I think he's one of the top Foley artists now in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But he was an independent guy that had a company that just re-recorded, and we went in and let's make a roar of a lion and a railroad train whistle and a blah blah, and we just amalgamated or aggregated all these different sounds and combined them. So
When do you remember this becoming like a cult phenomenon, and it's just like, oh geez, like I'm getting invited to convention, everybody like loves this thing, people got tattoos on their body, all that kind of stuff.
that's scary.
Yeah. When do you remember that happening? Like, because it's probably a
You
movie
know
that
more,
you
because
shot
he's-
and you moved on to the next one.
He's been
that's the
around
business.
this a long time. He and Courtney are really responsible for the other two of us being here and being part of this, because this is big. But you started this.
It's actually Courtney started it with our manager Chris Rowe, and then Courtney said, "Hey, come on, join the party." But it was not even before all the convention stuff started. It just became more of a thing. It was like people would still recognize me in public, and it was actually a negative thing at first with the casting directors. I was up for a good co-star part. I can't remember the name of the star. I was saying like De Niro or something like that. And the producers just said, "Oh, he just did a horror movie. No way. We cannot have him in a big De Niro movie or whatever it was." So it was hurting. Nowadays, or even like 10 years ago, everybody wanted to. TV stars were dying to be in horror movies. Jennifer Aniston started off in horror movies, and
Leprechaun.
yeah, right. But I guess it did snowball, and then once Courtney and I started doing conventions, and you would suddenly see like the row of people lined up to meet you, You know, it's like, so it's very wonderful, and you know, it's just and touching that it still, you know, makes people strong memories. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh no,
It does. It does.
And lastly here, I'm sure as a director, I'm sure you're going to say all the scenes are my baby, and I love them all the same. But I will ask you, do you have a favorite scene from the film, either the shoot or that when you saw the final product or anything?
The very first scene that I did after I flew out to Iowa was the big walking around scene, you know, and then and I was again terrified. And then here's your mark. Every time you do a line, you've got to end up at this, and they would like put corn stalk or whatever on the ground because they couldn't have it show up. So that was just my first scene it was a big scene. I was the whole thing. I'm preaching to the kids, and it was just so memorable because it was my first feature film, and here I am doing this, and I felt like I nailed it, and then they came up with the idea at the end to look into the camera directly, go at you, and that was like whoa, so it kind of broke the fourth wall. But watching it, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was the point. I think I kind of agree with you that I like that because of the blocking and moving around, and there's a fluidity to it that gives a sense of activity, and the frame's not static, the world's moving, and all this kind of stuff. That cinema theory crap. Anyway, but I really did want that let's have him speak to the audience at the end.
Yeah,
and
of course,
I got shit on by the studio people. You can't do that. It won't cut together. That's a terrible thing.
Really?
He looked
Wow.
right at the camera. That's the only take. What's wrong with you? And I kept saying, no, he's looking at the audience. Just leave it
Yeah.
alone. It's absolutely very powerful. It will scare the person to be recognized in their seat. That's the point.
That-
Don't you
and-
understand?
And that,
cinema?
that is the whole
That's
whole
what it's
argument.
all
That's what
about.
horror movies are supposed to do.
You know, in theory, we
elicit
call-
fear in your audience. That's
what
what
we
they're
call as
trying to do.
proxemics, how
Yeah.
close we are to the speaker, you know, social distance and
Mhm.
intimate distance. I wanted that intimate scare and threat. So I like it. I really like it. It
So
works.
shall be the unbelievers.
And still got it.
Still,
The dog. He's the big dog.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Unbelievable movie, still holds up to this day. I can't believe I heard that we're coming up on a 40-year
2024.
anniversary. of this piece.
2024.
should it
yeah.
get the Hellraiser treatment?
Yeah.
The
What would
Hulu
you-
Hellraiser treatment.
What is the Hellraiser treatment? Because I've never heard of that.
Well, just that
Yeah,
they
well, that
brought
is-
back for
Yeah.
There's a
Oh.
new
New Hellraiser on
but
Hulu?
it's
That's
quality.
actually being
I'm not
given
familiar. I
by
thought there was just one Hellraiser. It wasn't a very good film, was it? Did it make any money?
Hellraiser.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of
You're
them.
joking.
You
Yeah.
know, like
Okay.
how
There's a lot of them.
Son of
But,
a-
the core in 2024.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
know.
Yeah.
I think
that's
that'd
how
be-
they'll remember it. Yeah.
that to get that treatment. I understand completely.
Yeah.
I know what it is. That would be phenomenal.
So,
You guys can all play the adults now, and you'll be
Yeah,
murdered by the new
exactly.
children. You know?
right, yeah. I'll be the gasoline guy. And the,
Yeah.
Sarge, that's his line. Sarge. They got Sarge.
They got Sarge.
Awesome. Well, Chill in the Corner is playing tonight. Yes, and I believe you're going to be doing a little bit of commentary on it.
Yes.
And that's, I think, at
Awesome.
8 o'clock
Yeah, 8
tonight
o'clock.
and,
Yes.
and the Warner Theater and the Eerie Horror Fest. And obviously, we mentioned this when we talked with Courtney and John, but go find the movie. If you're not able to make it down here, the movie is fantastic. There's nothing else like it, honestly, when it comes to child horror. Like, that's kind of the
Yeah.
Agra horror.
aggro horror.
Aggro
Yes.
horror.
Corn horror.
Corn horror. Corn horror. Well, again, Fritz, John, it's been amazing having
Thank
you
you
here.
very
Thank you.
And that's it. We'll see
Cool.
you. See you next time.
See,
All
we'll
right.
talk to you tonight.
Talk
Okay,
to you
sounds
tonight.
good.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
We'll give a question that we didn't think of. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Cool.